With a total of 14 weapons in Nioh 3, it can be a daunting task to decide which one to dive in on first. Do I main the dual swords? How good are the Tonfas? How sharp are the Talons? Well, in this video today, I want to take a look at these 7 ninja weapons to help you decide which is the best one for you and your playstyle. This isn't a tier list, and no one weapon is absolutely terrible. The goal of this video is to give you a sense of how each weapon performs while also breaking them down into relative skill levels so you can spare yourself any frustration if you're a newer player. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge in my videos. So with that being said, let me give you the groupings for each of these weapons. I've broken all 7 into 3 categories: beginner, intermediate, and advanced, or at least it's more technical. Beginner friendly weapons are the ninja sword and dual ninja swords. They have some similar feeling attack patterns and they just perform so well throughout the entirety of the game. Single sword gives you great reach and versatility, while dual gives you a much faster and satisfying gameplay loop. Intermediate weapons are the Kusarigama, dual hatchet, and Tonfas. All these weapons are about controlling the range in which you deal with the engagements, either by creating space with the Kusarigama and hatchets, or keeping that distance short with the Tonfas. The Tonfas are also absolute key damage powerhouses too. The most advanced or technical weapons are the Talons and the Splitstaff. The Splitstaff is a bit of an easier weapon to grasp than the Talons, but they both afford you some really hard-hitting combos that evolve as you progress through the game. Both also have a ton of mobility and speed that, when mastered, melts everything in front of you. Honestly though, you can't go wrong with any weapon. If you're a veteran or if you're a brand new player, please play this game however the hell you want. I can tell you that they all have their strengths and weaknesses. If one weapon feels weak, then it might need more skill points invested in it. Remember, you can respec at any time to invest into another weapon. Experiment with all of them and come back to the ones that you didn't quite click with the first time around. Treat your first playthrough like a method of discovering the game's mechanics so that you're fine-tuned for New Game Plus and you'll never be disappointed. But that's it, too long didn't watch this entire video. If that's all you want to know, please feel free to go ahead and shut the video down. I want to be respectful of your time. If you are heading out and you found the video helpful, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe, as each one of those things does help me out in a huge way. You can navigate ahead to any part of this video that interests you the most using the chapters with the timeline in the description. And if you're looking for help with more Nioh 3 systems, I have my entire playlist of guides linked in the pinned comment at the end of the video. You can also find a link to my Twitch below where I'll be doing giveaways and gameplay of Nioh 3. Well, let's get started on which ninja weapons are worth learning in Nioh 3. Loading into the game here, let's take a look at all 7 of the ninja weapons. Now, we're going to take a look at this from the top down first, because what I want to do here is break these into individual categories of beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And why I'm doing that is that you coming into the game, you can have a good idea of which weapons have a lower skill floor, meaning they're far more accessible, and they're going to be viable throughout the entirety of the game because of their movement pattern, the way that they can actually interact with their skills, whatever it is, versus the more technical weapons that have a higher skill floor, again, being higher or harder to access, but having a much more technical skill ceiling that allows them to really flourish as you learn or grow within the game. And to get us started here, we have the ninja sword. The ninja sword is just so strong. It's great, it's versatile, it's quick, it does a lot of really great damage, whereas it doesn't rely so much on repeated fast blows. It has really good moderate speed to do good moderate damage and really convert a lot of great not lessons, but a lot of great habits to you, the player. You don't find yourself kind of getting stuck in things that could get you punished with other weapons. Which brings us to the dual ninja sword. This is the other weapon I think is a really good beginner weapon. It does play very similar to the samurai dual swords with skills that directly overlap, like ones that allow you to do certain things, which we'll talk about in that section. But the dual ninja swords are a much faster pace to the ninja sword, so you do have to worry about your ki drain a little bit here, but you will be doing a lot faster damage and thus more ki damage. Also, they're far more mobile. You'll be jumping on the battlefield quite a bit with the dual ninja swords. So those are your 2 beginner weapons. Now into our intermediate weapons, and I want to talk about the first weapon here that I think is the one weapon that I struggle with in the entire game. It's the dual hatchets. They do require a lot of finesse, And I didn't put them in more technical because there's some other things that we'll talk about once we get to the dual hatchet section. But the dual hatchets want you to stay at a medium and close range. They require you to be very mobile, and you have to be very clever about your skill selection to get the most out of these. But I will say is they do have a good amount of accessibility, but I will also say that their skill ceiling feels a little bit lower than some of the other things in this intermediate section. So the hatchets are all about launching those hatchets from your hands, creating actual range gameplay with a melee weapon, which no other weapon in this game does. The other one in this section is the Kusarigama, which is one of my favorites here. The Kusarigama was very good in Nioh 1 and 2, and the Kusarigama remains very strong here in Nioh 3. What this weapon is going to be doing is a lot of big, arcing, cleaving attacks to give you a lot of ranged hits. So you're going to, well, I'm sorry, not ranged hits, but a wide range of hits all the way around you in a 360 or a cleave right in front of you. This is kind of the benefit of this weapon. Also on top of it, you can see the little weighted end in that picture. That does give you some range capability where you can throw that thing right in front of you and hit people. You can pull them in with it. So the Kusarigama is one of the weapons that creates the most control, I think, of all the weapons in the game on the battlefield. You can push people away from you. You can draw them back towards you. You can get a leverage and launch them into the air. There's a lot of really cool, not just simply mobility as in you, the character, but mobility in the way that you manipulate people in the battlefield with the Kusarigama. Now, the other weapon in the intermediate category is the Tonfa, and it is another one of my favorite weapons. And I'll be totally honest with you, I think every single weapon in the ninja category is one of my favorite weapons. But the Tonfa is absolutely destructive. It is a key damage powerhouse, like I said in the intro. It just is about very fast hits. Different than the Talons, though. And the Tonfa, you got to be careful with the Tonfa, because the Tonfa, I think it's really easy to overcommit and you drain your stamina, and by stamina I mean your ki. You drain your ki all the way down and you're in a really precarious situation. But the Tonfa, at the same time, you can damage someone else's ki so quickly that then you finish them off. Like if you're attacking revenants, you can kill revenants so quickly with the Tonfa because you've knocked their ki down, then they're staggered, and then you just go with a grapple and or finishing blow and they're dead. So the Tonfa does also have a lot of technicality attached to it too. It does have a lot of mobility. You can use that mobility, and it does have good counters actually built into it, which a lot of the weapons, they might have counters, but not quite like the Tonfa does, which we'll talk about in its section. So those are our intermediate weapons. Let's now talk about our more technical weapons. And I think the first one on that list is the Splitstaffs. And I love these things. They kind of performed, I don't want to say quite like the Switchglaive, because the Switchglaive evolves, but the staves, again, I'm not sure which one I'm going to stick with, have the capability to split, and they kind of become big nunchucks, and they can be swung around and hit in all sorts of directions, kind of like the Kusarigama, but in a lot faster of a pace. So it's almost like you're taking the range and punching power of the Kusarigama and matching it with the ki damage and the close combat capability of the Tonfa. But you also get a lot of mobility built into this in just simply your mist dash capability. You can have it so this thing lunges you away, kind of like the spear does for the samurai. So this weapon exists in a lot of different spheres, and it does a lot of different things. And that's why it is such a technical weapon. Even though it is in this advanced technical category, I don't think it's necessarily a hard weapon to grasp. You do get it later in the game. And by later in the game, I just mean you have to craft it at the blacksmith, or maybe it's like in like the third region. But so your accessibility to it by virtue of the game is a little bit locked. But I think that once you jump into this, you'll find that it has so much everything that it's a very, very fun weapon to use. The last one on this list, though, here is the Talons, which are going to play very similar to the Samurai Cestus. And if you wanted to play Nioh like a fighting game, Talons are where it's at. You have combos that are linked into combos, and you can chain those combos together again, just like the Cestus, but you also have lots of mobility. You have a lot of cool counters. You can use these things to get up in the face of something, to jump behind something, to then jump half backwards and punch them in the face. The Talons are so, excuse the stupid pun, punchy. They're very strong, and I use the word punchy because they can just hit in so many different directions at so many different times that it's a very satisfying weapon to master. So while it is very technical, I don't think it is more technical than this, not the Splitstaffs, than the Switchglaive or the Cestus from Samurai. I think the accessibility of all of the ninja weapons is very high by comparison to their samurai counterparts. So now we have that kind of base understanding of all the weapons. Let's jump in now to the actual detailed description of each one. So our first weapon to dive in on is the ninja sword. And I think it's the one that most people are going to play with first because it's what the game default gives you. And I think it's just a really good weapon to learn a lot of the basics of Nioh. It doesn't teach you bad habits. It doesn't give you, you know, bad lessons. Like I think the next one is the dual swords, but I think the dual swords can kind of teach you to overcommit and you end up with drained ki. The ninja sword, I think, gives you a good pacing. And I really just like a lot of the abilities here, like Shadow Clone that just allows you just immediately, that's a mobile attack that you get just right out the gate. You go ahead and just swap right behind someone. And on top of that too, there's a lot of accessibility to quite a lot of elemental damage in the ninja sword. Like this is a water attack. This one up here is a fire attack. This one over here is a wind attack. So right out the gate too, you get so much capability with that, and you get a lot of verticality. The sky rift here that you jump in midair and you just slice through, it's really strong. It's really, really good. I have one that I got from a Crucible art here called Falling Moon, and you hold it down and you just slash down with your sword. Both of those, I use them all the time, and I'm not necessarily launching anyone to the air. These go from the air to the ground, so there's a lot of great capability within them. So I like that I can use a lot of functionality with the ninja sword. I don't feel necessarily like I am tied down in one direction of play. I feel like I can be mobile. I can use where's the Y button? Is this one? Which one's the Y one? Which one is it? Is it showing on here? I don't know if it's on here or not. Well, they've got like one where you just basically lunge forward when after like a quick attack. It's really nice. And that capability this one's great too, where it just gives you good mobility where you just leap backwards. So what I get from this weapon is great verticality. I can do some strong air attacks. This is what I was talking about, where you just hold down Y and just lunge forward. It gives you the ability to close the distance very well, and it does good punching power. So with this weapon, I just feel like I've covered all the bases. I've got a good amount of speed. I've got the capability to like phase around things. Like, you know, I can like blink around them and do good damage. So I've got good mobility in that regard. I've got solid actual damage that is not having to rely on a flurry of blows. So that allows me to pace myself and place myself in better situations rather than just, okay, I'm going to press X, Y, X, Y, X, Y as fast as I can and just try to drain their ki because this thing doesn't do a lot of damage. I can just press 1, 2, 3, then get out, 1, 2, 3 and get out and dodge or mist. And I think that is the real strength here of the ninja sword. It is going to teach you good lessons while also teaching you a great foundation for the continued play of Nioh 3. Next, we have the dual swords, and I love the dual swords in both the samurai and the ninja, but for the ninja, they play just a little bit differently. They do have a lot of great speed, and they have a lot of great mobility because a lot of their attacks are big, sweeping, and they push you to locations. Like, look at this one here. We're going to jump and jump and jump and slash. And what's nice about that is you really need to worry about your sustained damage with this. You have a high flurry of blows, so that sustained DPS is very much there. But since you're not doing as much damage per hit as compared to the ninja sword, for example, you need to make sure you're not really draining your ki too much, because the reach on these weapons is minimal. Yes, they do have big movement attached to them, but you have to make sure that that movement is a little bit more on point. They do also have just like, here's this really cool one. It's this right here, like Cloud Splitter Fire. You shoot someone into the air, and then what I'll do is, you'll see it in the gameplay in just a second, I bring Spinning Drill down and then just come right down on top of them. So you can really chain their combos together. This is the first weapon, if we're talking about all the weapons here, that really rewards you in learning lots of combos and bringing them together and chaining these things into a really, really fun soup of destruction. Now, they do also have a counter, and what I don't like about counters with ninja is that a lot of them are button dependent. This is left bumper plus Y, for example, but not all of them are the same button dependency. So it's kind of hard to remember which counter is which from weapon to weapon. So if you are going to start to learn the count, like this one, for example, is left bumper forward. If you are going to learn the counters for these, just remember which weapons they are, because those counters are strong until we get to the Tonfa, which is a little bit different. And counters deflect, if you want to think of it from this game's perspective. But and this is also one of my favorite abilities for the dual swords, Moon Shadow. The samurai sword has this exact same one, the dual samurai swords, where if you hit someone guarded, you swap behind them and do damage. It is a very, very strong capability. It's what keeps this so good. So if you want to play a weapon that is going to be a flurry of blows, not as much per hit damage, but a lot of sustained damage, you're going to really like the dual swords. Just make sure you're watching your key and make sure on top of it, you really stay mobile to maximize the pure punching power of these weapons. Moving into the intermediate category, we talked about this just a second ago, might as well bring up the Tonfa. Now, I love the Tonfas. I love them in Nioh 1, I love them in 2, they're even better here in 3. And they just do so much key damage. That is really their big focus. And on top of it though, they do have a lot of, I'm not going to say punching power. You thought I was going to, didn't you? No, they have a lot of really cool mobile attacks that push them forward and swing around. This is what I was saying about that ability to control the battlefield, because a lot of their stuff just moves them. Like here, this one, it replaces your missed thing, but instead you leap a little bit backwards, and then you can chain it into this. You leap backwards and then punch forward. So you're starting to utilize every piece, every bit of your space, and turning it into something very destructive, which I really like. I have this Crucible one here, left bumper Y, and I just completely spin these things around and do some damage. It is a parry. Now, this is what I was talking about, in that the Tonfa has just a simple standard deflect like you get when you're playing a samurai. You just press left bumper, and there you go, you deflected it. And then you can evolve it to deflect it, and then just punch them right in the face with the same button that you did. So, and you can do this to do even more. So there's a lot of really good evolution to the Tonfa's capabilities, and its capabilities too have good reach. They lunge forward, they lunge back, and in a different way than also when we're talking about the Talons, but in a different ways than the Talons. And they have really fun stuff that you do up in the air. Not as much verticality, I would say, as a sword, but quite a lot to do a lot of very fun damage. So if you want a weapon that is really going to do a lot of key damage, it matches that speed of the ninja swords. But I think honestly, learning the Tonfas is more rewarding than the ninja swords, just because that key damage is so brutal. But at the same token, you will drain your key faster on the Tonfa than you will on the ninja sword, in my opinion, because of the need to chain even more combos together. I find that when I was first learning the Tonfa, I would put myself in situations where I was really running out of that key. And when I would run out of key, I'd just get grappled and destroyed. So you really need to make sure you pace yourself. And I will tell you too, the Tonfa has a lot of skills that overlap. So meaning that Mountain Breaker here is left bumper X. Another one of these is left bumper X over around here. There's another left bumper X somewhere. And I don't usually I try not to take skills that do overlap. So try to stick with skills that and go down the rabbit hole of improving those skills. So that's one thing I will tell you, that we're going to get into that too with Kusarigama, because it does share that capability, is try to focus on certain skills that have the certain commands, so you can try to maximize that muscle memory, and you're really going to be rewarded with a destructive weapon with the Tonfas. Next to Kusarigama is another of my favorites, and it's one that I used a lot in Nioh 1 and 2, and also now in 3. But I will say that Kusarigama feels very weak when you first get access to it, which is pretty immediate. I think it's like one of the first weapons I found for ninja. And it really wants skills. If we just take a look at the 3 invested ones to start off, you have an X one, which is fine. You have Reaper, which is honestly really good. The dual swords have one of these too. I didn't really bring it up in that section, but this is actually, you could just hit something once with X and hold Y and kill most things through the majority of the early game with the Kusarigama. And then you get Leaping Strike, which again, it just doesn't really feel strong in the very beginning of the game, but that's it. This weapon though evolves to become something that has a lot of mid-range and close range power to control and also do damage. And it is something too, I think, once you wrap your mind around which direction you want to take with this weapon, it can be very good. What I mean by that is you can go up and do a lot of verticality with this, you know, hold Y midair, hold left bumper and X in midair, and you've got stuff that pulls you down to do damage. This one keeps you in the air to do damage. I think this is an evolution of Leaping Strike. Yeah, this is just launches things into the air for you, and you can further pull these things in more and more directions. So you can stick up with being in the air. You can go more of that route if you want, or you go and stay down. Now, I will say too, this weapon has a lot of button overlap. This is X after a strong attack. This is X after a strong attack. This is Y after a quick attack. This is, that is Y after a quick attack. This one over here, it's X after a strong attack, which is the same thing as this one right here. And then it's left bumper before an enemy, or left bumper before an enemy. So you have to decide what you want out of these. And I would always recommend when it comes to something like that, you're like, hey, well, which one do I choose? Try to choose something that evolves. It like literally evolves, like Serpent Strike goes into Whirlwind. So this does not, these aren't the same skill, but I want to get to this, which is Second Wind, which is an evolution of Whirlwind. So, and then this Whirlwind Wind makes the Whirlwind does wind damage. So for me, I see a direct value in these three capabilities because it's like it's how I like to play the Kusarigama. Big, whiting, arcing, slashing hits versus these other ones that maybe aren't more in line with what I want. So Kusarigama has a lot of different ways to play, and I think that's what is one of its strengths. It has that mid-range capability, but it can feel very clunky early, and you have to learn that positioning to really pull the most out of it, because that it doesn't have a lot of the burst damage, a lot of the weapons we've talked about so far, but it does have so many more capabilities to disorient things, knock them off balance, then pull them back in to do big damage. Like, where do I have chain pull up here? Chain pull is one from a crucible weapon that just launches things into you and you just decimate them. So the Kusarigama does reward you for really learning the technicality of this weapon, but I think the accessibility, once you get actual literal skill points, not actual player skill, this weapon gets so good so fast. Last but not least, well, last and least in this section of intermediate is the dual hatchet. And I'm very big on, you need to learn to play the game how you want. And I've tried to talk very positively about every single weapon in both this video and the samurai video that we've covered before. I don't have a lot of nice things to say about the dual hatchets. And I will say that's mainly because I was approaching it from a different aspect, and I really put a lot of time in today before I made this video to try to get them in a way that felt better, and I did find a way. The dual hatchet, though, is really funky. It wants to be mid-range, but it doesn't feel very powerful at mid-range. It wants to be close range, but it does not feel very powerful at close range. The benefit of the dual hatchet, more than any weapon in the samurai weapon arsenal, is you need to kind of use this like a hit and run weapon. Throw an axe, leave. Get a good combo in, leave. And that's really what comes to the fore here. And where is this? The dodge one. There's a oh, you dodge and you throw an axe. Yeah, nope, that's not it either. Well, either way, you need to get that. That's like kind of like a big it's a big aid to the weapon because it gives you a sense of, okay, I know that if I get myself out of harm's way by dodging, I can at least get an axe throw into there. Okay, cool, well, let's go with that. And you can see that this ability, and this ability are all the same ability off of Y. And you can evolve them to be a faster charge, or a faster charge up, or a longer reach. So you have to choose one that you want, then you got to go in a direction you want. I went all the way over here for Greased Lightning to hold this, then lunge forward and do a big lightning slash. Then I chose something like this so that when I was running, I could throw axes. Then I did something like this so that when I'm fighting, that axe in the air comes back down and hits someone in the head. So I had to devise a way that made this make sense for me, because initially it didn't. I think the dual hatchets is the one weapon that people are going to struggle with the most of all the weapons, because it doesn't really feel like it plays as well with the way the ninja wants to be, which is, sure, yeah, maybe be hit and run, but the mid-range and the close-range damage both are very small. So you have to chip away at things with the hatchet. And that's the way I think to frame it versus the larger, burstier damage of a lot of the other weapons. Once you really kind of get down the different combos for the hatchet, I think you'll start to enjoy it. And I've heard from the comment section People absolutely love the dual hatchet and they melt things with the dual hatchet. I've fought NPCs that are fighting me with dual hatchets, like Revenants, and they've done way more damage than I've been able to pull out of them. So I don't want to discourage you if you like them. I'm telling you that you really need to be clever about your choices of where you're investing, or your choice of where you're investing your ninja points, because if you haphazardly put them into things, you're going to spread yourself too thin. You need to drill down, focus on a specific style for the hatchet, and really utilize that style. So while this is not an advanced weapon or a technical weapon, because I think it's very accessible, I think it's the only weapon in the whole game that misspent points actually hurt you. Versus, man, I've got points on spear that I've never used, and then I just realized the other day I was like, I'm not even using that. I should respec this. So put points into hatchet, respec. Put points into hatchet, respec. Find stuff that works for you, and you will start to really enjoy the hit and run, more dodgy playstyle of the hatchet. Now moving into our advanced category, we have the Splitstaff, and man, this thing is so fun. You get access to it a little bit later. It's like right after the once you get access to the blacksmith, you can get the Splitstaff, and it is such a satisfying weapon. It is such a satisfying weapon because it moves in such a cool organic way, and it has really fun combos. Like, let me see, is this one? This is the one? No, here it is. So you just hold B while you're guarding, and you just go through this big whirlwind of destruction. Hit, 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 as long as you have the key to do it. It's really, really fun. And you jump over here, and every time you go into mist, you can actually lunge around with your staff just like you can with a samurai spear. And you can do this one over here that does a big arc and then slashes and gets you behind them. So there's a bunch of mobility attached to the Splitstaff. Holy shit. First time talking. And it's got a lot of really cool jumping around capabilities, but it also does a crap ton of key damage. It does a lot of good key damage. It's got a lot of good range. Like I said, it's kind of like if you had the Kusarigama, which has like a sickle and then a weighted end, right? Well, the Splitstaff is like, what if I just put a string in between both my tonfas and then threw them around? Because it gives you a lot of good range. You can lunge your staff forward and throw it up at someone. You can spin them around you for tons of damage all over you. You can jump into the air and slash them down, throw them down to the ground, or spin them and whirlwind them in the middle of the air. So you get a lot of that kind of control from the Kusarigama. You get a lot of the key damage from the tonfas, but then you get a lot of the mobility from a lot of other weapons that we've talked about in the past, again, like the samurai spear. And I think it's one of those ones that at first blush, it looks kind of like, I don't know if I really want to play. It doesn't look like it would play well with how the ninja plays, which is very versatile and acrobatic and dodgy and evadey, all that kind of stuff. But the Splitstaff really does. And again, I think it's because it has an ability to do that. But the attack patterns of it move the character forward, and it pushes them through a lot of enemies, swiping the staff all around them and doing bunches of damage. And I think that's what makes it such a cool weapon. It has a bunch of lunges to lunge you forward and do big damage. So you get a lot of good functionality. And I think too, it's one of the weapons that does not have a lot of deflects. I think it has one deflect, and the deflect I don't necessarily use because of the wide range and control aspect of the Splitstaff. So if you want a weapon that does have that key damage of the Tonfa, and it does have the range of the Kusarigama, you will love the Splitstaff. Just really know that it is going to be a very technical weapon. You do have to worry about how the combos work and that the timing of those combos to get the most out of it. If you kind of just slap buttons around, you're not going to actually hit it. And if you overcommit, because this thing is going to drain your ki very quickly, you will get punished fast. So the Splitstaff, high damage with a good amount, with a great reward, and it is going to have a good amount of a risk attached to it. All right, our last weapon to talk about, and it is quote unquote the most technical, is the Talons. And I don't think it's more technical than the Cestus, like I said before. And I've said this too in the intro. I think if we were to take all of the samurai weapons and to put them on that same tier that we did here, which I did in that samurai video, I think you create a tier that is like easier than beginner. And that's where we start with samurai, or I'm sorry, with ninja. And even the advanced technical weapons of ninja still feel like they maybe are in more of an intermediate level. They just have a really good accessibility. And it's because you don't have to worry about key pulses, you don't have to worry about stances. So you pretty much just have one-dimensional weapons. So accessing the Talons is a lot easier because it is just pure aggression. You're flat out brawling, throwing fisticuffs, and you get a lot of really good abilities right out the gate. Even just holding Y, you can do a lot of good damage with the Talons. You can just simply do quick attack, and then hold Y, and then just cleave through the majority of weaker enemies. But when you start to really pull things together, you get these windmilling attacks, you get these big elbow thrusting attacks. You can go into the air and do some big attacks. And I think the Whirling Tiger, this one I'm just showing right now, is so strong. It is so strong. And then you can do really good dodging techniques from this too. You can dodge away and then dodge through things, which is so strong because now you're right behind them and you can punch the crap out of them. And you do get the capability of the Cestus where you can chain combos together, but you do unlock that once you defeat a certain master in the game. So you will not get there through raw point investment. And I think two big things that the what's this thing called? The Talon really has going for it is just the ability to really stay behind enemies and do flurries of blows, so you don't feel like you're constantly needing to worry about dodging out of combat. And even into a lot of just like the basic capability, like holding Y, I can replace that capability of the repeating slash of my my Talons with doing like a half step back and then a big forward punch forward. And you have, even in just your other capabilities, you can make it so after a strong attack, you can just press X and you'll leap through something. You can dodge and then leap through something. So you get so much control of the battlefield because you're moving around it so quickly. So single target, it's going to be great. And even when you have a lot of things surrounding you, you have so much mobility that you really feel like you can control a lot of things. But the downside is you don't have many defensive capabilities. I don't even think there is one deflect, as it were, and that evolves just once. So they are minimal on the defensive side of things, and you really need to learn the attack patterns of enemies to know when to dodge, when to get through them, when to deflect, and it's going to be very unforgiving in that regard. So once you really unlock learning the game and the flow of combat, the upside damage potential of the Talon is so good and so brutal. So it really demands that you have that confidence of knowledge to really punish the enemy. And I think that anyone who is a veteran, anyone who's brand new to the game, once you really spice into these, no matter your competency level in the game, you will really love how rewarding the Talons are. So to close our video out, let's talk about some fun combinations of weapons that I really like using together. Now, this is just recommendations. There's always tons of things that you can do, so please don't feel like this is the only way you can play this. So Talons, I think, we talked about these just a little bit ago, right? I think that they just have such a fun mobile way of playing the game, and on top of it, you can just do so much. And I think that works with really any of the samurai heavy weapons. So in this case, I've got the Odachi, and it works very well with it, right? Because you do the big cumbersome swings that are heavier on the key damage side of things, and the actual mobility of the Odachi when it comes to its skill investment is actually pretty high. I don't have any skills invested in it right now, but you can really swing around heavy with this weapon to match that speed of, to complement the speed of the Talons. Now, another thing too is I really like, where's the Tonfa? Tonfa, I was using lower level ones when I do all the exhibits of content. I like the Tonfa a lot with the spear, because the spear has such good mobility, right? And you also have a lot of really good, let me get all my key back. You have a really good capability. It's called triple threat with the spear that can like level pretty much anything. And that's it. Like I messed it up, but if you do that, time that properly, the 3 stabs of that spear are so strong. You can kill almost any enemy with that capability. 5, 1, 2, 3, and then that. There you go. And then you switch over to the Tonfa if you want to just really work over someone's key. And it does such a good job of doing that too. I mean, we talked about how the Tonfa is really a powerhouse in that regard, and it's just so good with all of that reach and then all of that key damage put together, you can really have a lot of fun with this weapon in a cool combination, because you get such a close range with this that if you need to actually kind of back up and get a good, better range, you can capitalize on it with this spear. So I think these two really work well together. Now, to close us out here with our last one, I really like the, I like the Kusari. I was going to say, do I do the dual swords? But I was going to do Kusarigama and the dual swords over here. If I can ever find them on here. There we go. Because dual swords is one of my favorite samurai weapons. I enjoy the play style of it. And this gives you a really good, fast-hitting weapon that you can really take advantage of being close with. And what you can do is, if you're thinking of threading these things together, you can take the Kusarigamas. I don't think I have any of my abilities still on this thing. Let me check. No, I don't think I still have them on. Yeah, because every time I do one of those little exhibits, I respec everything. You can take the Kusarigama's ability to pull things in to then capitalize on it via samurai. I'll be totally honest with you. I'm not that good at the game, but I'm not that good at saying, hey, I have just done a wicked combo with samurai and then I'm going to go into this. I'm not that good at it, but there's definitely a potential in a weapon like this that creates space and pulls things in for you to then turn into a blender with this to do whatever number of combos that you can really take advantage of. So hopefully this inspires you, gives you ideas on different ways that you can play the samurai, or the ninja. And there's so many other combinations that you can do. You can do split staff and spear like I've recommended before. You can do axe and dual swords. Dual swords are so fun on the ninja. So if you are using a particular combo that you really like, go ahead and let it be known in the comment section below. I don't really worry too much about the weapon scaling. That was a question a lot of people asked me on the samurai version of this. Well, what two weapons work the best scaling wise? Whichever ones you want. Because remember, you can then change that weapon scaling as you see fit. So don't worry too much about that. Just find weapons you enjoy and then have one fit the other scaling or whatever. Have both of them fit the scaling of the stats that you want. But that brings our video here to a close. So if you have any questions, any comments about either specific ninja weapons, or you want to recommend any ninja combinations with samurai weapons, again, let it be known in the comments section below. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.